Kratz, what did you say on the Instagram promo video today? What was the first sentence that you said? We haven't said it yet here.
8 days till pitchers and catchers.
That's how you do 8? Okay. I got made fun of the other day because I said 2 like this instead of this instead of this. But you're 8. Isn't AJ, how do you do 8? Wouldn't this be 8? Really? 5 plus 3, not 4 and 4? Okay, cool.
I wouldn't do 4 and 4. I wouldn't.
Okay. I think it's a major league thing, but we'll see what everyone else has to say. I want to get right into this madness so that we have 10 minutes for it. So, because it sucks, we lost a good ump today. Let's charge the damn mound.
Charging the mound.
And when I say good, what he did was definitely shady, but his performance on the diamond was exceptional. One of the best umpires calling balls and strikes is not going to be part of Major League Baseball anymore. He has a chance for reinstatement. He can apply in 2026, but for now, MLB fired umpire Pat Hoberg after he was sharing a betting account, sports betting account, with a buddy of his, and they placed a ton of bets. Pat claims he didn't bet on baseball, but he was sharing the account with his friend. The friend stays over at his place 20 to 30 times a year. Hoberg made 529 bets, putting down $700K. Those two on their shared account, they won on baseball bets. They lost on everything else. MLB obviously did a super thorough investigation. Pat gave in his phone. Here we go. I want to just lay out a few details, AJ. I know you're ready. And then they didn't find any connection with Pat placing baseball bets. The way they caught him was interesting. Last January, they had a chat, right? They go over things with the umps and said, hey, if you're betting, you can bet on non-baseball. That's okay. That's allowed. But you better make sure it's on your own account, because if someone else is your account, they can bet on baseball. Then you're in trouble. And he claims he was like, oh, crap. Now I have to start my own account, not be sharing an account with my friend. So he started his own account. And then because sports betting is regulated these days, we were actually able to catch this whole situation. In the past, this would never be caught. So we find out Pat's been sharing an account with a friend who is betting on baseball. Obviously, they spent a ton of time together. They would exchange the money in person. They would communicate on a super shady messaging app, although it's a very popular one. It's super shady. It's where you do like drug deals and stuff like that. I know it well. It's where like international terrorists communicate. And then they deleted all of that. So with that said, AJ, your thoughts?
Let's dig into you, Scott. Why are you on a super shady app where drug deals and terrorists are? Maybe we should have MLB.
Wait, let's dig into me. I would never download that crap. No, that's why I didn't even
say
the name of the company.
You just said you use it. Rewind.
Did I say I used it?
Yes.
He said he knows about it. He said he knows
about it. I didn't say I use it, dude. No, I would never. I would never touch that crap. I know about it though, and I didn't want to even give them love. That the name of the company.
Okay. So you have a friend that uses it for you. Got it. Okay. Sounds like Pat Hoberg. No,
you're making.
Don't bet on baseball, kids. Don't bet on baseball. That's it. This is why Pete Rose can't get in the Hall of Fame. This is why certain people are Joe Jackson, some of the Black Sox. Don't bet on baseball. My biggest question in this whole thing, this makes sense why, because Hoberg wasn't in the World Series last year and he was rated as one of the best. It makes sense now. But my question is, why is he sharing it? Why is he sharing an account? Why would you share an account with somebody? Isn't that like the first thing you're taught, like about banks and about your cell phone and about all your shady apps that Scott uses? Don't share the account information. Don't share the password. Don't share anything. Why is he sharing an app and then they only won on baseball? I know that Pat Hoberg didn't bet on baseball, but I mean, if his friend messaged him on a shady app and is like, what do you think about this umpire? And he's like, oh, the umpire might not be blah, blah, blah. I mean, not saying this happened. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of coincidence that lined up.
Quick caveat, just so that we don't have any trolls that are picking at any parts of what we're talking about. He wasn't in the World Series because he was investigated starting early last season. So they took him off and said, we're going to investigate you.
That's why. Now we
And
know
that is
why, because normally he's one of the best umpires. He's the guy that got 100%, and he normally is one of the highest rated guys. And it was weird. I remember looking at the umpires thinking, man, Hoberg's not there. I wonder why. Now we know.
Now we know. So they didn't see any influence in the 8 games where bets were placed that Hoberg was involved in. They were not profitable overall on those 8 games. And again, he claims he wasn't placing those bets. They have technology to be able to see who's placing it, right? That's part of this. But regardless, Kratz, I don't care. I mean, you're sharing an account with a friend who's betting on baseball. Like, what are we doing? I mean, are you that out of touch that you don't know how this works? You know, you're either in the Stone Age and you don't understand technology, and then I'm like, okay, then the one thing you can understand is don't be involved in betting. So if your friend says he wants to open a betting account and share it with you, say, I don't understand technology and I'm not supposed to be involved in that. And even if you're just doing non-baseball stuff, sounds like a bad idea. So I don't care if you're 20 or 90. It's just a mistake that, to me, lines up with not knowing a law. You know, you got caught. You can say whatever you want. It didn't really influence much, but it's a mistake that has to be punishable this way. And I would be surprised if he's allowed back in.
There's a lot of things that people can be misconstrued as like, well, they didn't really tell us as baseball players not to do that, or they didn't really tell us we shouldn't be there. Yeah, I get it. It's probably common sense. Gambling and all in baseball, for umpires, for players, for front office, it's a mandatory meeting that you cannot bet on baseball. And when the sites started coming in and started being regulated, it made it a lot easier for guys because they could gamble on other sports, and they made it simple, made it regulated. But this is not every single spring training. This is talked about, whether you are a minor league umpire having your first minor league meetings or you're a big league umpire. They're all having these meetings, and it's clear as day. You cannot be involved with it at all, even to the point where I've sent my buddies texts when I was playing and be like, hey, I can't respond to what you just said because that would be construed as me, manipulating the game. And they're like, oh, sorry, I was like, I just have to say, I have to say that. You just can't have anything to do with it. And he broke that trust. I have a hard time seeing him getting back in also in 26, but we'll see.
And the reason you would share is potentially because you're in a state where you can't legally bet. So you share an account with a friend who's in a state where they can bet. I mean, unfortunately, not every state has it regulated yet.
But you got to make sure that your friend isn't betting on baseball. Like, you can't. This is just a chance you can't take. We all make choices in our life. We have to deal with the consequences. This was a bad choice by a good guy that was a good umpire, and now he's probably done. You can't bet on baseball. Just stop it. Everyone says Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. You cannot bet on baseball because it can manipulate the game. We just saw a thing with the NBA. Rozier Terry Rozier was investigated. Right now they're investigating some college things from it, like Shohei and Ippei. That whole thing. Don't have friends be able to have access to your account, and if they have it, you got to tell them to get the hell off and close it up, because if something like this happens, it's your life that gets affected. So don't have people on your account, and don't bet on baseball. It's not that hard.
It's like if you loaned your house to a friend who's a drug dealer and then you got in trouble. Well, your friend's a criminal and you gave him your house to run a drug operation. I mean, you got to know your friends. And if you're concerned about something, you got to be able to tell them no. AJ went over this a couple weeks ago where he's not a big stay at my house kind of person. I mean, I've gotten the ask before. I'm away from an apartment. Hey, can I stay there? Depends who you are. Because if it's somebody who,
even then,
is single and dating people and I don't know who's coming through, I'm like, nope, sorry, can't take that chance. Love you, but no. So I think that part's important. And also, why do more of these stories pop up lately? Because it's regulated. I truly believe in that part of it. To act like this hasn't happened for 150 years is insane. It's just that people can get caught now because not all of it's being done by illegal books in the Cayman Islands. Right? If this happened in the past, this would be very difficult
it's available.
to be able to
Here's
track.
the thing. It's readily available. Listen, as a show that we know where we stand with betting and what they are to us as sponsorship wise, right? It's become the biggest thing in sports right now and kind of in America thing just came across my iPad here that, what was it, $1.35 billion they're talking about is going to be bet possibly on the Super Bowl this weekend through legal action. Who knows how many illegal things are going on, right? You just have to be smarter and you just can't do it, especially while you're playing or involved at all in the game. You just can't bet on the games and you can't have someone else bet on the games. It's just, listen, I get it. Everyone's going to say, oh, well, it's because, this is sponsored by this and this and this, and we're going to get mad at them. But you just got to be smarter as a player and somebody involved in baseball that you just can't do it.
It's why, though, whatever. You can say, yeah, we have, betting sponsors. Like, cool, we're talking about this. That's why we're doing it. I've always been steadfast on this. My track record even goes back to asking the commissioner of baseball at a town hall about betting and when the legalization is going to come, because everyone I knew was betting on these illegal books. And I was always thinking, if you're some random college hoops player at some D3 school and someone's going to pay you off and it would be your play, I'm like, how is this ever going to get caught? The only way to be able to regulate that there's suddenly a ton of handle going pushed towards a random college game, which is an investigation going on right now, is if it's regulated. If it's not regulated, like in California, this crap can go on. So I'm big on that part. And again, back to the top, sucks to lose a good ump because we got a lot of umps that struggle behind the plate. This dude was good. If you look at this, you're like, damn it, couldn't it have been? And go down the line of who you think sucks at calling balls and strikes. And Pap had the funniest tweet too. He was like, "Oh crap!" He's like, "Does this mean Angel Hernandez is coming back and taking his spot?"
Come on,
Pat's
Pat.
been on fire lately.
Angel catching strays.
Yeah, but it was good. It was good. All right. So anyway, thoughts, questions, concerns, we can address them, but wanted to take this one full on and obviously be like, come on. Way too much shadiness here and sucks. Even if you thought you were innocent, you made the mistake that affects the integrity of the sport. So
listen, we talked about it. It's like if I give you my car, Scott, and you're pulled over with drugs and guns in the car, and you're driving my car, guess what? I'm gonna get somehow brought into it, even though I had nothing to do with it. I didn't even know. You just asked me to borrow my car. You're going to an EDM. Next thing I know, you got drugs and Molly and all kinds of crazy stuff in there. And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. He just asked to borrow my car. But you had a great time on the way. Now we're both going to jail. It's always the thing when people get pulled over. How many times do we see, cop recordings where they're like, body cam, where they're like, it's not my car, it's not my stuff, it's not my car, officer. Well, you were the one in the car with it, and the guy owning the car then gets brought into it. So, what I say a long time ago, check your junk. Well, protect your junk too.
It's not okay.
That's right. My shirt says it. It's not okay. So we'll leave everyone with this. AJ, can I borrow your car?
Hell no.
You will borrow a car. You will borrow a car.
You will not borrow my car.
I'm a known car borrower. It's true. When
you don't know how to drive
stick,
though, right?
Around the country. You only have stick cars? No, you don't. Yeah. You only have stick cars?
Mm-hmm.
Your truck is stick?
You can't drive it. You can't drive stick though, can you?
What if I can? If I can I drive it?
I know you can. No.
Every kid should know how to drive stick. Every kid. It should be mandatory.
I don't know how we got to this, but this show is taking place in 2025, not 1995.
Scott,
so you don't have to know stick.
Can you drive a stick?
I don't, but if I learn it by the time I see you again, then I'm driving that car. So we'll be right back, FT fam, and preview the Royals season. They've actually been pretty active. $10-day countdown until Valentine's Day. Okay. There's only one place that you should go to right now, and it's at the bottom of your screen, or if you're listening podcast form. Give me the name, please.
1-800-Flowers.
And give me the specific website people should go to get a dozen roses and double their bouquet for free.
1-800-Flowers.com. Easy peasy. The flowers that I got.
Whoa. Then you can go. /FT.
Oh, FT. Sorry. /FT. It's on the bottom. Look at the screen. If you're listening, just pull up the video. The roses I got, these things. This was, let's see, what are we, the 4th now? This was 11 days ago, and these things are still looking nice. I've never had roses last this long. Now, the orchids, those things are going to last forever, like 6 to 8 weeks or something, they said. Oh, big brownie points to start off 2025 for the big fella. Appreciate you, 1-800 Flowers.
There you go. They're all picked at their peak. That's why they're beautiful. It's a great value. And at 1-800-flowers.com/FT, you claim double a rose's offer. You get it. You make it happen. You double the bouquet when you order a single bouquet. Okay? Buy 1 dozen and then get 24. Go make it happen, FT fam. Be right back. Here we go. Let's talk about what really matters in Kansas City this week, and that's the 2025 Royals. Kansas City Stars. Jaylon Thompson joining us right now. Jaylon, great to have you on the show. Thanks for the time. How you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're great. We're great. So we're going to cue the storylines and get into a team that went from 100 losses 2 years ago into the postseason last year. All right, let's jump into it. So these are the 4 that we're going to go through with Jaylon right now. 100 plus losses in 2023, playoff team in 2024, and they did a little bit of damage in the playoffs too. India Spice, Jonathan India for Brady Singer. Thoughts? Maybe more opportunities for Bobby Witt Jr. to drive in runs. And then Jack Kaggs, the first-round pick from a year ago, could be coming to the show soon. And Bobby Witt Jr. finished in second place to Aaron Judge. Can he top him this coming season? All right, let's start at the top. Do you feel like they did what they needed to do this offseason to make sure that they're a playoff team again, Jaylon?
I think they did. When you look at what the Royals did last season, they had a 30-win improvement going from 106 losses in 2023 to winning 86 games last year, making the playoffs, beating the Baltimore Orioles, and then playing against the New York Yankees. And they were competitive in that ALDS against the Yankees. When you look at what the Royals wanted to do this offseason, their key goals was to keep Michael Wacha and really strengthen that starting rotation. And they did that really early. They got out in front of it, and they brought him back on a really nice deal that fits not only the player, but the organization as well. So you have Michael Wacha coming back with Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo, and then you go back and you get a Michael Lorenzen. Now you have 4 all-stars that are in that starting rotation. And going with the offense, you have Bobby Witt Jr., as you guys mentioned, Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez. They still wanted to add to that, and we know we'll talk about it with Jonathan India coming up soon. But I think the cohesiveness of this team is something that can really help them because they went to the playoffs last year. They learned as a young unit what it takes to get there. Now their whole thoughts this season is, let's go back and let's go further.
How's the swap of Brady Singer and Jonathan India really going to pan out? Because Singer was super reliable innings eater, but does this mean Bobby Witt might have 1 million or 1.5 million RBIs?
It might be 1.5 million and a couple more, honestly. Looking at what Bobby Witt Jr. can do on the field. I mean, second 30-30 season last year, the first shortstop to pretty much do that. And then to have the ability to continue to hit at least 20 home runs his first 3 years in the big leagues. He's a 5-tool player in every sense of the word. And now you're saying you're going to put someone like Jonathan India in front of him, which the Royals, they kind of struggled with that leadoff spot last year. That was a big point of emphasis this offseason. I believe they had like 5 or 6 guys that they tried in that leadoff spot, and nothing really stuck. So now you're having Jonathan India come in, and he's a guy that had 28 doubles last season. And as you guys know, those power alleys at Kauffman Stadium, that number can definitely be sustained, or it might even go up some depending on how well he's going at the plate. So to have someone that can be on first base when Bobby Witt Jr. steps into the box, I think that will be key for the Royals to starting off the game with more run production, and then that'll only help the starting pitching staff as well. And I know you mentioned Brady Singer. That was a move where the Royals felt they had depth in their rotation, and they knew that if they wanted to get a leadoff hitter, they targeted Jonathan India as the guy that could do that, and the Reds needed a pitcher, so it just kind of made sense to swap those two former Florida Gators teammates.
We're going to talk about another Florida Gator, Jack Caglione.
Yeah.
When's he going to be there? He got his first year last year. He dug in. He got to play in the fall league. Had a nice fall league. He's not a two-way guy. I know people say that. I watched him a lot in college. He's not a two-way guy. So I know it says on here, will he let him hit and pitch? I hope they don't let him pitch. He just needs to go up there and hit 40 for the Royals. But when do you think that we'll see him? Is he on track to possibly see him this year?
Yeah, and first and foremost, AJ, it's cool talking to you. I was a Braves fan growing up, so I watched you when you came over to the team. So really great to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to Caglione, he is a guy that the Royals have high hopes for. He's their number one prospect. He is someone that they want him to hit. That is what they drafted him for. They really love his bat, and they really were excited about what he did in the Arizona Fall League when he hit those 5 home runs in 21 games. He really showed that he could hit advanced MLB pitching. So they knew that he's a guy that they would like to see continue to hit moving forward in his career, and that's where they have him at. They haven't shut the door on him potentially pitching, but that is something that's going to come down the road if that is the case for him. But for right now, he's going to be a hitter. Royals general manager JJ Piccolo, he said at the recent Royals rally at the stadium that Caglione is going to hit. They're going to potentially, if he's going to make an impact on the MLB roster, he might have to work on his defensive skills, and that he might see some reps in the outfield if he continues to progress and come along. But for right now, he's going to be a hitter, and that's what they want him to be.
All right, so we got to hit on Witt here. I mean, Bobby Witt Jr. is something that nobody will ever remember. Unanimous second MVP voting. Like, that's not what you're really looking for. Does he take the next step and top the list this year? Or is it something that, until Judge leaves, Bobby Witt doesn't win anything?
I think if it was any other year, I think Bobby Witt Jr. would have been the AL MVP last season. But you can't discredit what Aaron Judge did. He had a historic season. Those 58 home runs, those 144 RBIs, hitting over 300. I mean, that was incredible. So you got to give credit where it's due with Aaron Judge. But what I told people and what I really thought last season was Bobby Witt Jr. can do what he did in 2024 pretty much in 2025, 2026, and beyond. He's just that kind of talent, and it's not out the realm of possibility that could be the baseline for him. So if he can take his game to another level in 2025, I don't see why he can't be in the discussion for winning the AL MVP. This guy is, like I said, he's incredible at all aspects of the game. When you watch him on a day-to-day basis, you see even just the skill set, how he rounds the bases, how he goes from first to third. Those things are kind of uncanny and can't be taught, and Bobby just has that. And then he's continuing to develop as a leader and getting more mature as he continues to go through his MLB career. A lot of advice and help has come from Salvador Perez, who's the captain of the Royals, and Salvi has said it himself. Sometimes let Bobby take the lead and help go through some things in the locker room because, he's the guy. He's the one that they want out front and center. And I think Bobby has really embraced that. He's always so pleasurable with the media and everything like that. So I believe that if there's a year for him to win the AL MVP, it definitely can be 2025.
Bonus questions for you, Jaylon. Let's do some quick hitters and try to get through as many fan cues as possible. So here's Ricky said, will Lorenzen be a two-way guy? I think this one can just be an easy yes or no answer. I'm assuming that they're not going to let him hit, are they?
No, he's going to pitch this year.
Okay. And then Michael says, care to ask if Brady Singer was the only starter floated? Were there any other names being shopped this offseason?
I'm sure the Royals probably looked at all aspects of their team, but Brady Singer was the one that they settled on.
I have one for you, and then I think there's one more fan question, then AJ will finish. Anthony Santander was a late pursuit this offseason. Our Ken Rosenthal reported on it. How much do you think they needed a guy like that for their outfields? And what did it say about what their plans were when they pivoted to Carlos Estevez? Clearly, that was the guy. They didn't feel like there was going to be anyone else in that range to their liking. I personally thought they should have pivoted to Jerks and Profar. I know he's not the power guy unless you're buying exactly what he did last year, but I do think it would have been a nice fit for that outfield. What about you?
Yeah, I thought that both of those guys could have been a good fit as well. What the Royals really wanted was someone in the middle of that order that could, have some power, be an impact bat when you get past Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez. You wanted someone that could hit in that 5 or 6 range, and they couldn't find that. They talked about it openly. JJ Piccolo said they tried, they were active, but you can't make a trade with teams that don't want to trade their own players. So and as with Santander and Profar, they had other commitments that they wanted. I think I read somewhere where Profar wanted to be either with the Padres or the Braves. So there's nothing you can really do about that if that's where he wants to go. So the Royals definitely try, and that's not to say that they probably won't continue to keep trying, depending on what happens in spring training or what happens during the middle of the season. But for right now, they're content with what they have.
That's true. Profar is a big Braves guy. I did read about that as well. They've got a good connection with, certain international players, like Curaçao's a big connection for them. Okay, last fan question, and then AJ will finish here. Ricky says, will Joey Wiemer get a chance to start in the outfield? Could be a cheaper Renfroe option.
Yeah, they're really excited about Joey Wiemer. They're going to look and see what he can do this offseason. In spring training. They acquired him for a reason. So he has a lot of skill sets that if he can put together, he could be someone that could draw some starts in that outfield. Because Royals manager Matt Quatrero, he loves to be versatile and move people around. So that's what he's going to do this season. So I wouldn't put it out of the question to see Wiemer get some starts out there.
All right. I got 3 questions to finish with you. One on the Royals. Yeah. 2 not on the Royals. 1, how's their stadium coming? I haven't heard anything about it since kind of the beginning of last year. Has that started? Have they already started the process to build the new stadium? Because remember, that was why they said they spent money.
They haven't started the process to build a new stadium yet. They're still trying to have discussions about where the new stadium will potentially be. They had a vote last year where it didn't go through, so they're trying to just see where is the best spot to put this new stadium. But they do want to build one, and they are still working hard to try to figure out where exactly that's going to be.
Okay, got it. And then my next one is, since I know you're an Atlanta transplant, go Braves, by the way, in case no one's ever seen this. I was a zombie bobblehead once. That's how much they love me in Atlanta. They made me a zombie. But for The Walking Dead, so they made me a Walking Dead guy. Are you rooting for the Chiefs this weekend in some game they're playing in, or are you rooting for the Kratz's Eagles? ELGLES, by the way.
Well, I'm a Falcons fan. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, so I know pain and no heartbreak. But living in Kansas City, I think you have to go with the Chiefs, and I think it's going to be a cool story if they can get this 3-peat. It's never been done in the Super Bowl era, so I think the Chiefs are going to take it home.
Well,
okay, and then last one.
Oh,
no, I got one more. Sorry, Jaylon, how's your driving? Can you drive a stick shift?
I have never drove a stick shift in my life. Okay. I've been automatic, so no.
Okay. Now,
well, bring me in.
No, wait. This is going somewhere. Have you ever been pulled over for reckless driving? Let me ask you that.
No, never have done.
Are you sure? Because I know what fan you are, and every single person that I know, okay, that's a Georgia fan, guess what they get? they get pulled over for reckless driving. So be careful in Athens, people.
That's true. That is true. But Georgia did win, and they have beaten Florida a whole bunch of times this year.
Ooh-wee.
That's
Ooh-wee.
fine.
That was a great answer.
The thing is a-turning. The tide is a-turning. It's turning. It's turning. DJ
I thought you were
Bagley,
I thought AJ was going to start telling us about all the players that got in trouble during the Tebow era and just start running through all the arrests.
Didn't you watch the thing they did on Netflix? Nobody got in trouble. It was the perfect.
Oh, right.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Well, Jaylon, we'll finish with this. If you do learn stick shift, AJ is letting anyone that learns stick shift borrow his car for one day. That's what we learned earlier in the show. It's a really random thing, but it's popped up and it's become very popular. So we'll both take our.
What kind of car is
I didn't say which car, though. I didn't say which car you could borrow. Scott.
That's fine. That's fine. We'll take a crappy car. Jaylon and I aren't rich. We're not complaining, or unless I don't know something, but Casey's star pays okay. They don't pay that well. Jaylon, great to have you on here for the first time. Hope you had fun. You were awesome, man. Great pace. And thanks for running through the Royals with us. We'll see you during the season.
Thank you guys so much. Hope to join again.
Yeah, we loved it. All right, FT fan, be right back. We've got some interesting quotes to slice up from Jim Edmonds and Jerry Dipoto. We have signings, people. We'll do them during the breaks because they're a little bit baby, but they're still important. Tim Hill signs with the New York Yankees. 1-year deal, $2.85 million. There's a club option for $3 million in 2026. He was dynamite for the Yankees, a hidden gem found from the Chicago White Sox. And in my mind, he'll forever be known as the guy that was not summoned to face Freddie Freeman in Game 1 of the World Series. Right?
That will stick. I don't know about fans if they'll remember it, but that'll stick in every one of the players' crawls. Every one of them. Everybody wants to be out there in those games. Because it didn't turn out well. Everybody wants to be out there. Tim Hill wanted to play in that
Nestor's
game.
last pitch. Nestor Cortez's last pitch as a Yankee was a walk-off homer in the World Series. That sucks. And there was a reason. Didn't they say somebody was Freddie? Didn't Freddie have good numbers off Tim Hill? There was a reason. I forget at the time. It was some crazy thing.
Yeah.
But Tim Hill was a different guy later.
Did they have numbers for Nestor Cortez not pitching for like a month and then just popping up in an enormous moment in Game 1 of the World Series to face Freddie Freeman? Or was there not a number for that? Whatever. I could be critical of that. We all know there was a lot of groupthink and analytics going into that decision, and it was the wrong choice by the Yankees.
It's not as good
anyway,
as Tony not as good as Tony La Russa walking Will Smith to face Max Muncy of the 1-2 count. Not as good as that.
But at least that was regular season poison. This was the World Series. But Tim Hill's a good pitcher. It's a nice signing for the Yanks to add a little more to the bullpen, and he was a big part of the bullpen last year because they lost Canely. So I like this move for them that they bring him back. And it seems like a good price for somebody in this kind of role, right? I mean, lefty reliever's not quite the same as it used to be, but he can get, lefties and righties out. So good for the Yanks. And quick poll results here too. How do you show the number 8? You guys won. 5 on one hand, 3 on the other, 61%. But there are, 38% of you out there that are watching right now that do agree with me where you went double force.
Unless you're Al Fonseca, then you do this one. And he's got that little pinky that sticks out.
Felix Rodriguez, too, had that. He had the extra finger. He had the extra digit right here.
Did he really?
Yep.
What a name. Felix Rodriguez.
You want to see? How about this? He told me this. Now, this was told to me by him. I don't know how much time we have. He told me, we'll have to get to it later, but we'll have to tell that story.
Okay. Another break. Save it. I want it.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Dealer's choice on this one. Are you guys cool with Mariners then Edmonds on these two quotes that popped? Okay, let's go with Jerry Dipoto first. We've been following the Mariners quotes and trying to stick up for M's fans. And really all you need to do is read replies to any quotes that have been coming out of Seattle lately to understand what's going on there. So Jerry Dipoto, fresh sound from yesterday, last night, he said it's been a pretty quiet offseason. And I think that's reflective of a team that didn't have a whole lot of holes to fill. And, we feel great about our farm system. We feel great about the stability in our team. And we feel like our offense doesn't get enough credit for the things that they do well. How have they not won the World Series every year with a statement like that? It's one thing to say, we've got work to do, we've got some weaknesses, but yeah, how do you do 54?
However you want to do it.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you how the Mariners do it now. We're perfect. We didn't do anything this offseason besides bring on Donovan Solano and let loose Josh Rojas. Polanco stays. Everything else is the same. Again, I did like the Arozarena pickup last year at the trade deadline, and Victor Robles turned out nicely for them. But that's it. That's how you fix the Mariners' offense. Worst batting average in baseball last year, and a lot of other very, very low ranks offensively. We know the ballpark sucks, but let's dive into the quote, AJ. Why say it in this way? Do you think it's because in the past he has mentioned the budget and he was told not to do that anymore because Mariners fans are losing their minds with pitchforks and you have to be a company man?
Yes. And they brought in Kevin Seitzer, Kratz's favorite hitting coach, so they're not going to strike out and they're going to hit singles all over the yard. Just get ready.
I hope they do.
Man. It's going to be amazing. But let me just say this. This was him being a company guy saying we have a really good team. Plus, he's the GM. He put the team together. He has to say that we have a really good team. Every team goes into the season saying, we got a really good team. We got a good shot to make the playoffs. You'll even hear from the Marlins this year. You'll hear from the White Sox this year. You'll hear from the Rockies this year. Oh, we're making improvements. We're taking steps in the right direction. Well, the next step for the Mariners is to get to the playoffs and make a deep run. Guess what they haven't done in forever? 2001, I think they won their last playoff series, maybe. It's been forever since they've won one, right? They have to go back and figure it out. They have to take the next step. How do you usually take the next step? We talk about it all the time. You spend some money. Guess what? When you're not allowed to spend money, guess what you have to do? You have to say the company line that we're pretty good. And if you're the GM, you have to try to believe it. So good luck to the Mariners. Good luck to the Mariners fans. Can't wait to see how this plays out.
I'm gonna say I agree with Jerry. They do have the makings of a really good team. Best starting rotation in baseball. Relievers. I mean, they got relievers on the rack. They're just waiting to call them up from AAA. They've done an incredible job. So pitching, bang, they're set. Then you look at the starting, the starting nine. Oh man, you got an all-star catcher, all-star capable catcher in Cal Raleigh hitting dingers. Great defense behind the plate. J.P. Crawford stays healthy. Awesome. Julio Rodriguez, we know what he can do, what he has done. So you're solid up the middle. But don't sit here and say you have a solid team that is, a playoff team. Yes, those dudes are anchoring this team. Add to them. Add to them. I wonder if Jerry Dipoto calls Mike Elias and is like, hey, if you don't add, I won't add. Like, we'll just kind of stay with how it is, and it'll be cool. We'll suppress salaries for a long time. We've created this dynasty, and we can stay right around 54%.
All right. I just want to know this. If they're so set with their roster, why is Castillo on the trade block? Why is he the name that we keep hearing? If their roster is so perfect and they don't, why would you even think about trading Castillo, the guy who's been your opening day starter and has been your number one for a while? If everything is so set, then why would you trade him to try to get bats and try to get younger and all this? Like, that doesn't make sense. Try to save money so you can go out and sign people. If your roster's perfect, you should have just sat back like this, not brought in Donovan Solano and said, we're going to win the World Series. We're going to bring the exact same team that we brought back last year that didn't make the playoffs, and we're going to win the World Series.
The approach that's being taken to mess with fans right now is maybe arrogance, maybe ignorance, but definitely not nice and fuzzy. I don't get it. Like, I understand the restrictions. I've also been very, very strong in pointing out that you need to do something when you're not even a playoff team. You can't just roll out the same roster. So that's one issue. But then the way that you're describing why you are not acting at all is true arrogance. He is right about one thing. Their farm system's in good shape right now. They've got one of the better ranked farm systems. Baseball America is coming out with their team rankings tomorrow, so I'm excited to see where they rank. They will definitely be top 10, maybe top 5, maybe even top 3. But still, it's just a weird quote, Kratz, and it screams, I've said this before, and now I have to say it differently because we've had a strategy session about it. But it's just like, how does a group get in a room and say, hey, this is how we're going to approach it? Instead of saying that we have budget constraints and we can't add, let's this time just tell everyone we have the perfect roster already and see what happens. Does he think that fans are dumb? I'm really trying to get inside the psychology of how this makes sense. Like this is the exact way to just take tons and tons of wood and just chuck it into a fire and just let it rage all over the fan base.
I think what AJ said is exactly what's going on. We're 8 days from spring training. We're 8 days from pitchers and catchers. A lot of guys are already down there. Sometimes I think these people in the organization, I was guilty of it on different teams I played on, of drinking the Kool-Aid. I feel like AJ was a much better evaluator of like, I don't know, man. Like, we suck. Like, and I was more in the realm of like, doesn't matter. We're going to go out and win. Raw. And it doesn't mean that one of us was right or wrong. It's just a matter of like, we are so close. They've built all their projections. They say this is what's going to happen. We love where we're at. They're just blinded and they're like focused just in that way. And they're just blinded to the fact that they didn't hit the ball. They strike out a ton in a park that doesn't even reward you for hitting the ball that far because it suppresses homers too. So to me, you're like, ooh, we're gearing up, almost a week away. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a really tough look. And speaking of spring training, Ashley, I do want to get to this story for a couple minutes. Jim Edmonds is on the outs with the Cardinals. He said, I haven't really gone down in spring training the last couple of years. It's not fun anymore. They don't make you feel like you're wanted indoors in the inner circle. It's just not the same. It's not the same organization. It's not fun to be around. They make it pretty obvious. Even the security guards like, hey, it might not be a good time. I'm like, fine with me. I don't need to be in there. If you don't want me to tell your pitchers that they're tipping their pitchers or this guy's pulling off and I don't really give two bleeps about it. Jim Edmonds talking about the current state of the Cardinals. What do you guys think about this in relation to the Cardinals, knowing Jim, who also is definitely, a strong personality and a straight shooter, and that can be tough for certain people to take. What do you think, AJ? You've been around.
He just comes across a little bit bitter because he's not back, right? I don't know, but he's not back. They didn't invite him back. He's not back on the broadcast I saw, and I get it. It's tough, but yeah, I mean, listen, teams have changed. It's not the old style of bring in the old guys and let them teach the young guys. It's, we have a machine that can tell us better than the guy that actually stood in the box, okay? And that's where I think the disconnect has come from organizations. And if you're not going to jump on the bandwagon of analytics, and the Cardinals were criticized forever for not using enough analytics, so now they're jumping on that bandwagon. It's a tough thing to do, and you have to understand that you have to be able to roll with the punches and do certain things. And I don't know. I like Jim. I think he was a hell of a player. He was a Cardinal guy. After getting over there, the Cardinal fans loved him. He knows a lot about the game. It's a shame that they don't, if this is true, that they didn't use him the way that he thought he should be used.
I wonder how long this was boiling for him. I wonder if this was like just this year he went down there, because they're kind of transitioning over, and I've seen some new GMs come in. I've seen some new, just bebop, some baseball operations guys come in and say, hey, I want to shift back to bringing some guys in. To me, and this might hit AJ a little bit harder than other people, if you want a World Series with an organization, you have to have a longer leash for, like, if you made somebody mad, like, what it's like to win in that city, and that is valuable. Whether or not you are like, analytics or all old school, whatever it is, you can't create, separation in the clubhouse or in the organization, but what it's like to win there. You know what it's like to win with that uniform on. And as bad as the White Sox have been, like a guy like AJ who's won as a White Sox and his whole team, all his teammates, those guys should be around. Same thing with Jim Edmonds. He had success in St. Louis, and to me, they should be around. Maybe they should be talked to too, because if they get too bitter, but I just think they should be around. They should be around the guys to help them create a winning environment.
Can I present a counterpoint? Because I've done some homework on this. I've been told that some teams are great with this. Some teams suck with this. And most teams are in the middle in that they would love certain vets involved with certain things and other vets involved more with, say, the fans or with other players. The example would be if there's a former player who has a very, very different philosophy or is even talking down about something that's being taught to a player that goes against the coaching staff. And then coaching staff and manager, who also often is former player, gets involved. And it gets a little bit tricky. Not saying this is the particular situation here, but AJ, if you're a really good organization, you probably have 20 guys that are a big part of your past. Not every single one is the correct choice to be coaching your players.
Agreed. Different people should have different roles in the organization. And listen, coming from somebody that was let go by a team they won the World Series with, me, for not being fully on board with what they were doing, I understand this. And, we're all entitled to our opinion. And listen, guys, teams do things the way teams want to do because you know what? At the end of the day, teams have all the power. Just lucky for me, I have some other forum, foul territory, to give my opinion.
Exactly. You will not be restrained. For Jim, we'll see where he pops up. Actually, for Cardinals fans, you can learn more about this story with Katie Wu, and Trevor Rosenthal should be really good on this topic too, as of course a former Cardinals player. So make sure you check out Cardinal Territory with former Cards closer Trevor Rosenthal and the Athletics Katie Wu, part of the FT Network. Yes.
Break. I will say this. I played for the Cardinals for half a year. They were incredible about bringing former Cardinals back. I mean, it was every day there was somebody back. I mean, it was like, you look at what they have now. They have Ollie Marmol managing. Didn't they have Descalso? They brought back John Jay. They have every coach was like a former Cardinal, had some affiliation to the Cardinals. They're one of the great organizations about doing this. So it's just weird to see somebody as great as Jim Edmonds to have to say something like this because the Cardinals are one of the best teams I was around as far as alumni relationships.
Bingo. So to me, sounds like moretothestory.com. And yeah, next up, we're going to go over the San Francisco Giants with former big leaguer F.P Santangelo. All right, AJ, do you remember this story from last break? You got it for us?
What story?
Felix's sixth finger. Felix Rodriguez.
So Felix Rodriguez, if people don't know, he's a pitcher. He pitched for the Giants. He played for the Giants when I was on. He had a little finger, it was tiny. It was like this. It was like this big, literally. But it stuck out on his hand right here, right? So he had a little finger. And he told me this. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. So people in the chat or on Twitter, he told me as a kid he cut it off and it grew back. He had one on each hand. And he literally tried to cut them off, and it grew back. I don't know. That's what he told me. Could be true, could not be true. I love Fifi. He was one of my favorite teammates of all time. He's funny as hell, threw one pitch and had a great career. But he told me as a kid he cut them off, and they grew back.
Did he use it to manipulate the baseball?
How is it going to manipulate the baseball? It's down here, Scott.
It's like down just here. Right out here.
It was like, yeah, I don't know.
You guys take me way too seriously.
He had a weird thing with his glove because sometimes his glove would irritate it, so he had to kind of position his glove a certain way.
I don't think I've ever seen that. Have you ever?
I don't think that's a real choice. I don't think it's a real story. I think he lied to you.
That's fine. He lied to me. I'm just relaying that I was lied to, but I'm just telling you that's what he told me. Because I said, why don't you go in and get it cut off? And he said, I tried as a kid and it came back. And I don't know. Again, I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, I don't think it's like a haircut, but he probably could have done it again if that was the case, and it wouldn't grow back the next day.
Scott, I don't know. I'm just telling you. I don't know. Listen, one thing I'll tell you is I'll tell you true stories that were told to me. They may be true, they may not be true, but they were told to me by somebody. And this one was told to me from the guy's mouth, his own mouth. So, again, probably not true, but worth a good story.
The six finger part, though, is true. And
Yeah.
It wasn't, a prosthetic or something that was added on.
No.
He had it.
No. He didn't have an extra finger stuck right here out of his just for looks. I mean, it was but it was tiny. It was like this big and like super skinny.
People do wild things via surgery these days, but no, that was real. That was organic. But great story. I've never actually seen someone with the sixth finger. So I was interested to hear about that. But it does sound like if you really didn't want it, you could probably remove it since you don't need it. But again, I don't know the origins of it. This is not
Different times, Scott. Back when AJ played, they rode trains everywhere.
Yeah. Six finger Rodriguez.
Oh,
Right.
six finger Fifi.
Here we go. F.P Santangelo joining us right now. He's dialed into the scene out in San Francisco. F.P, how you doing, man? I haven't seen you in a minute. How's life?
Yeah, good to see you, Scott. Erik, AJ, thanks for having me on today. Life is fantastic. You guys got to post that commercial break what you just did on your social media. That was hilarious.
We will definitely post that. That was a new one for us.
Did you
we
play
go
with
in all
Felix?
different directions here.
FP, did you
did.
play with Felix? Did he not
I
have
did.
six fingers?
I don't remember that part, but I take your word for it. And I'm sure there's some guys, both of you guys have caught before that you would have wished you had a six finger for putting signs down.
No. True. Now, did you ever play with Bob Wickman? Because he was missing this tip of this finger, right? So that's why he could throw a cutter. So Bob Wickman looked like a bouncer. They called him the bouncer, and he was missing the tip of this finger, so he threw cutters because he couldn't. This finger wasn't full. Now that's a true story.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I probably had a nasty cut on it. Well, hey,
Yeah.
you do with what you're dealt with, I guess.
All right. So on that note, we are going to hit the Giants, the team that you cover for a few minutes here. So let's hit the storylines, a little animation. All right, we'll get to forum show. We'll have bonus questions too. But Justin Verlander signs with San Francisco. Blake Snell is gone. What do we think about the rotation? Big Willie style. Adames taking not just his talents, but his personality to San Francisco, and he has got a lot of it. Bryce Eldridge could finally be the first guy to crack the 30 homer code for the Giants since Barry Bonds. He's 6'7". He's a monster. And then Camilo Duvall and his struggles last year after being an all-star in 2023. So let's start with the rotation. How are we feeling about Verlander entering the mixed? Yes, that's great. That does
Backwards show.
Yes,
Mhm.
hat backwards show. Verlander enters the mix. Blake Snell is gone. There's a lot of young starting pitching talent in that rotation. Where do you think they're at?
Well, you guys are going to love this. I've been doing a lot of FanFest stuff, and I've been hanging out with Buster Posey and doing interviews with Buster and talking to him. And we just put all those graphics up showing what they did in the offseason. And just talking to Buster and his resume and winning 3 World Series, he's trying to sign character guys and clubhouse guys, and he wants that clubhouse to be a tight unit. And he wants the opponents to feel the Giants, whether you win or lose, to feel their presence. And when you guys think back to Buster Posey's teams in 10, 12, and 14, whenever you played the San Francisco Giants, you knew you were playing the Giants, whether you beat them or not. They were scrappy on offense. They pitched the heck out of it. They caught the heck out of it. And I think that's what they want to get back to. And no offense to the past regime and people that were here before, but there was never a lot of talk about getting to a World Series. I mean, they have 3 trophies on the corner of 3rd and King down there. AJ, you know that better than anybody. And in the past years, there was a lot of talk in the media from brass and front office people about, hey, we just want to get to the playoffs. And I think it's super healthy for a team to talk about, hey, we want to win a World Series. I don't care who's in our division. I don't care how much money they've spent. That this is the San Francisco freaking Giants. And I think with Buster at the helm, that they're going to get back to that. You talk about Willie Adames and Justin Verlander. Those are resume guys, but resume guys that can still play. And you guys probably know better than I do because you're more recent in the game, but I have never heard a bad word about Willie Adames. Like his clubhouse presence, we can see how he plays every day. And being a broadcaster, I don't fanboy about many players because, you're with them every day and you respect them and you love what they do and you live vicariously through them now. But as far as Willie Adames, man, I've loved watching him play from afar. I've talked to players that played with him, the clubhouse presence he has. What a nice guy. You guys know you can't win with just nice guys, but like he can play. And I think the fact that Buster's going after these guys says a lot about the direction the organization is trying to head, the culture they're trying to bring back to San Francisco.
And he's definitely a leader in that clubhouse, or he could be a leader in that clubhouse once he joins it. But the fear is just the same fear of any free agent that signs in San Francisco. Is his power going to go out? Will the park and the dew coming in, the marine layer coming in, squash his power like everybody else's?
Yeah, it might. I think you have to take the numbers, at least the power numbers in Milwaukee, right? That's a launching pad, Eric. You know that, and now you're playing in San Francisco, and baseball's meant to be played in the warm weather, and you're freezing your butt off every night. I remember when I signed with the Giants, I was at Candlestick, so I'm really aging myself. But the first month in April, I turned to JT Snow in the dugout. And I said, "How the hell do you guys do this? Like, I'm freezing my ass off every night. This is tough." But yeah, you get used to it. So maybe you water down the numbers a little bit, Eric. But like when you think about, I know it's not 2010, and this making me sound old, but the Giants never won a World Series by hitting home runs. They won a World Series by having a great starting rotation, having a great bullpen, catching the baseball on defense, and getting timely hitting. So I know there's a big beast down south that signed everybody in baseball and is defending World Series champions, and that's a daunting task for anybody in the National League West. But when you talk about the success the Giants have had in the past, I think they're trying to recapture that. Although you can't live in the past, right? The game has changed, analytics, new rules. But the formula is there, and you guys have won before, and you know what it takes. And a lot of times it's not about the numbers, it's about the people you have in the clubhouse.
All right, FP, I got to go to the prospects now. You just mentioned it. They're not a home run hitting team. The last guy to hit 30 homers there was this guy, right? And if you don't know who this guy is, it's 25, okay? They got a guy in the minor leagues, Bryce Eldridge, that's 6'7". He's supposed to be a monster. Will we see him in 2025 at first base? And will he be the guy to break the Giants' curse of nobody can hit 30 homers?
He's a grown man. He's 19 years old, or maybe he's 20 now. I don't know. He's 6'7", drops bombs. If you guys, I've only seen video of his swing, but the video of his swing that this guy can hit. Now, everybody there knows as an organization, it's a big chance. You're taking a big chance on a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old call him up. But when I was in D.C., Mike Rizzo called up Juan Soto when he was 19. Mike Rizzo called up Bryce Harper when he was 19. And that thing could go either way, right? If you have success, here we go, giddy up. If you don't, maybe you set him back a few years. But from everything I've heard, the video that I've seen, I mean, he's a grown man. Like he looks like he's 30 years old. He's 6'7". He's got the big league body. He's not skinny and gangly. He's all filled out. AJ, I heard your story about JT Snow and Barry Bonds the other day. They're actually sending JT down to spring training to work with Bryce Eldridge. I guess reports are he's a little rough at first base, but you guys know if you practice your defense and you care about your defense and you work at it every day, and you got a guy like Will Clark and JT Snow helping you out, I think the upside's really good on the defensive side. But yeah, it's going to be a tough decision. What if he goes into camp and he hits 450 with like 7 or 8 home runs in Scottsdale? Like, what are the Giants going to do then? And I think that's possible. So we'll see. All the reports are that this guy's the real deal, and he's kind of a guy you can build your franchise around at first base.
We already talked about how they're going to start the games, but Camilo Doval was an all-star in 23, led the league in saves. Last year in 24, didn't go too well. The WHIP was at 1.5. His ERA was in the close to the 5s. Is he going to be able to, 1, get the opportunity to regain the closer role, and 2, seize that opportunity and get back to that all-star form?
I don't know. Ryan Walker's pretty badass. So you guys have seen him with this stepping into the third base dugout, the crossfire. He's digging the role. He's got like a walkout lights thing going already. And at the highest level, you get the job done. It's your job. Camilo had a weird season last year, man. I don't know what was going on. He's always got the I don't care body language, which is great when you're pitching really well and the bases are loaded in the bottom of the 9th. And Tranquilo Camilo is his nickname, and he's super calm. But when you're not dealing and you have that body language, it can be taken the wrong way. So hopefully he figured some things out in the offseason. His fastball command wasn't there last year. His slider command wasn't there last year. And it got to the point where Bob Melvin had to put somebody in that was getting the job done, and that was Walker. And he's as dirty as anybody I've seen in a long time. So the Giants need him, though. I mean, if the Giants are going to do anything and get to October baseball and get to the playoffs and do what they did in 10, 12, and 14, they need a guy like that in the back end, because when he was an all-star, he was unhittable. He was throwing 102 miles an hour with like a 96-mile-an-hour wipeout slider. But confidence is everything, and for some reason last year, Camilo Duvall lost his confidence.
Now you brought up Ryan Walker. Ryan Walker is actually coming on tomorrow, and what do we need to know about? What do we need to ask him? Somebody that's watched him a lot closer than we've watched him, because only times I've seen him, he's been the opener. Now I hear he's no longer going to be the opener guy. Maybe a dark horse all-star if he's allowed to close for the entire first half.
Yeah, man. First of all, have 100 questions ready, because you're gonna.
Okay.
He's not gonna be talking a lot. He's super shy, but he's a great kid, man. He's like one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet in the whole world. And yeah, I don't know that the world knows about him yet, but yeah, that would be a good sneaky pick for an all-star. I wouldn't want to hit against him right-handed. Left-handed. I definitely wouldn't want to hit against him right-handed when he's throwing behind you with that nasty slider. And his velocity upticked as a closer. I just talked to him. We did a fantasy camp down in Scottsdale for the Giants, and he came and talked to all the fantasy campers one day. Just the sweetest kid in the whole world. But like his velocity went from 95, 96 to 97, 98. And he was a guy that just, the adrenaline of the ninth inning, he embraced it. Some guys, you've caught those guys where they kind of run from the spotlight in the ninth inning and they don't like the responsibility of being the last guy on the mound and shaking hands after the game. He embraced it. He loved it. His confidence grew every single outing. And I think right now, if you ask guys in the clubhouse, that's their closer. Unless Camilo Duvall comes in and just does some crazy stuff, like Ryan Walker's their guy.
All right. I was going to ask you something completely different, but now since you brought it up, fantasy camp. I don't care what Scott says. Fantasy camp, did you pull a hammy? Did you play? And what position did you play?
I didn't play. I was a coach. I was a skipper.
You got to get out.
I was a skipper. JT Snow was a skipper. George Contos and Jeremy Affelt. And we drafted players. You guys, it was like real life fantasy, like league. And these people love baseball more than we do. Like, we did it for a living, right? They're just so passionate about the game. They love the game. And I said, sure, I'll do it. The Giants kind of put me in charge of, from the players side of it, of getting coaches and rounding guys up. So we went down there in Scottsdale. We're like, oh, free trip to Scottsdale. This is going to be fun. From a selfish standpoint, you guys, it's the funnest week I've had in years. These people love the game. We had kangaroo court every morning. And in the big leagues, or even in the minor leagues, that kangaroo court can get weird, right? Because guys have egos and you find them for stuff. And you're like all of a sudden going, ooh, this is gonna cause a little team dissension. It was so organic down there that we laughed so hard. We cried every morning. We played games in the afternoon. I've never been to one. Like, I highly recommend fantasy camp to anybody. It was really cool. We all had a blast down there. And then all of a sudden the competitive juices start coming out. It's like a doctor, a lawyer, a father and a son, a brother and a sister, a husband and a wife. But they put that scoreboard on and there's runs up there. And I was yelling at umpires. And like, we had side bets going on games between the coaching staff. It was pretty cool. We had a blast.
All right. Well, you brought up the team to the south. And one of the questions that Scott Braun always asks on here, why even play the games? I mean, they're going to go 162-0, so why should they even play any games? Why should the Giants ever just forfeit their 13 games and move on, right?
Absolutely. Just go straight to the World Series. Just fast forward to October. We all sit at home and do nothing for 6 months, and then we watch the Dodgers play, I don't know, the Yankees, and then we just watch what you get. Hey, no one's ever won a World Series in January. No one's ever won a World Series in February. I mean, they look great on paper. They're defending world champs. The thing I like the most about them is, with all the superstars they have, whether it's Freddie or Mookie or Shohei, you go down the list, those guys play the game the right way. I mean, they all check their egos at the door. They're in to win. Obviously, they're taken care of for the rest of their life. But we've all been in situations where those big contracts sometimes change people. And to their credit, man, they move runners over. They get guys in. They play good defense. They run the bases aggressively, intelligently. They're all in for Doc. I mean, as much as you like to hate the Dodgers, man, I think they won the World Series last year because they played baseball the way it's meant to be played. They played the game the right way.
All right, FP, last thing before you go. You said something before we got on fantasy camp. You said you think the Giants can make the playoffs. Now, PECOTA, who's not always the greatest at predicting things, put out their prediction today. We're going to dig into them a little bit. They're at 77.9 wins. How can they win more than that in a division with LA, Arizona, and San Diego probably better than them, or LA, and people can make an argument they're better than where the Giants roster is right now. How can they be better than this projection of 77, 78 wins and make the postseason and make the Giants fans happy again?
Yeah, those predictions, you guys know a lot can happen during the course of a 6-month season. It doesn't look good, right? They haven't had some great seasons. They've done so many things where you watch them on a nightly basis, and I'm up in the booth doing games, and we'll go to commercial. I'll turn to my partner and go like, what are we doing? Oh my God, that's another base running mistake. They threw to the wrong base. They didn't keep the double play in order. So saying all that and then talking to Buster and being around a lot of the players this winter, they're all in Scottsdale together. The whole team's been down there for about a month or so. Half the guys live there. They've been practicing, on their own together, so that they get to know each other. They get to know Willie Adames. Willie Adames is turning double plays with Tyler Fitzgerald, who's going to move to second base. And I think if they play fundamentally sound baseball, and if you do that, you guys have been on teams that have done that. You don't have to have the most talent to get to October. You don't worry about any other teams. You isolate yourself, and you're like, it's all about us in this clubhouse. But if you play fundamentally sound baseball, you take your walks and hand the baton to the next guy. You run the bases smart. You're aggressive on the bases. They're going to steal a lot of more bases, or try to this year. You play good defense. You catch the ball. You throw strikes. You got a good back end of the bullpen. You could win a lot of games. And if you play fundamentally sound baseball, you look up after 6 months and you've won a lot more games than you've lost. Yeah, do you need the horses? Do you need the Freddie Freemans, the Mookie Betts, the Ronald Acuna Juniors? Do you need Juan Soto? Yeah, it's you have to have the horses to win a world championship. But to get to the playoffs and to compete, and I think that's a key word, compete on a nightly basis and play the game fundamentally sound, and make sure that the broadcasters up in the booth aren't losing their mind during commercial breaks because you're doing silly things every night, and you play consistently fundamentally sound baseball, you got a chance to play in October, no matter who you are. I think we you guys see it. I don't, at the risk of sounding old, nobody runs the bases anymore in the big leagues. Nobody gets guys over. Nobody bunts anymore. Nobody takes their walks anymore. Well, not nobody, but most guys want to hit. And so I think if you play the game the right way, you got a chance to win at the major league level. But that's the key, right? Getting guys to buy into, like hitting an 18 hopper to second to get the guy over and being 0 for 1.
Or you can run the bases like drunks and get to the World Series like the Yankees did. But the National League's a better league, so you just can't get away with that in the National League. But FT, thanks for providing some optimism and for the backwards hat. And good to see you, man. It's been a minute. We called some Nats games back in the day for YouTube and all that. So appreciate the time, man. Good to see you.
Scott, AJ, Erik, man, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege. You guys do a great job. I watch all the time, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, love to hear that. And everyone give FP a follow at FP_JR on Twitter. You can catch him a little bit on KNBR and other spots coming up this season. FP, talk soon.
All right, take care, man. See you guys.
See ya. We have a signing that occurred this morning. The Minnesota Twins make their first move of the offseason. Welcome to the offseason. Danny Coulombe, pending physical to Minnesota. And John Heyman wrote, very solid back end of the bullpen now with Sands, Griffin Jacks, friend of the show, John Duran. And yes, Coulombe, who has been really good as kind of the hidden gem picked up by the Twins, goes through injury issues. Hidden gem picked up by the Orioles, thrives. Injury down the stretch last year. That's how they can pick him up again. It looks like it was for 1 year and $3 million. Kratz, that's looking like the going rate, right? And that's probably why Tim Hill signed 5 seconds later. But what do we think about the Minnesota Twins and their almost perfect team that only had to add one left-handed reliever to get back into the playoffs?
Producer Lady creates a rundown for us every day, and we don't get to half the stuff because we gab way too much. One of the things we were going to get to one of the things we were going to get to was the best bullpens in baseball. I honestly feel like the Twins consistently create an unbelievable bullpen. I know they had a down year last year with that bullpen, but I was going to make the case they already have one of the best bullpens in the game. And you add a guy like DC who texted me this morning and said, or this afternoon and said, yeah, I'll think about coming on next week. He's a little busy getting ready for spring training, going down to Fort Misery. But I think it's a great ad because they do so many different things, guys from so many different angles. He's coming from the left side, falling off. Duran's just absolutely ridiculous with that splinker, and Griffin Jacks is throwing BBs up there. So that's what they do. They just create a lot of different looks for you.
Good
Welcome.
call. Yeah.
Welcome, Twins. That's it. Welcome, Twins.
Yeah. One team left.
We're gonna get-
What's the one team
we're
that
gonna get
hasn't
into
signed a major
Who's
league
that, the
player? I
Marlins?
think. I think it's
Marlins?
the Cardinals, is from what I saw. Maybe the Marlins. Like the Brewers are on this list, but they've signed like barely free agent contracts, like two guys that are either on like splits or something. And yeah, maybe the Marlins are there. I saw something this morning
Marlins?
said the
Who'd the
Cardinals were
Marlins
the only
sign?
ones left. Someone's got to help me out. I don't know. I mean,
I
maybe
thought,
not.
I thought
Maybe
the
they're
Marlins
still
and the
on
Cardinals were the two left.
You could be right. There's a lot of
It had been
there's a lot of
Padres,
BS online.
Twins. Yeah.
But, good for the Twins to get back in the mix. And yes, like Kratz said, play to your strength. Baseball prospectus PECOTA projections. Shall we? You want to go division by division?
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Dealer's choice, as in the notorious Jeremy behind the scenes. You get to tell us what you would
We
like,
know where
Jeremy.
he started. I know what he started with.
I don't know if
I
he
love
will.
the American League East. Yeah,
American
Jared,
League,
go-
I'm a Red Sox fan.
Go ahead and switch it now, Jared. We know you had that one queued up first.
Yeah, at least. All right, and I got to make sure I'm giving some verbal here because people are listening later on. Yankees 89.7. Are you guys cool if I just round up? So like Yankees 90 wins, Orioles 89 wins, Blue Jays 84 wins, Rays 82 wins, Red Sox 79 wins with a 14.7% chance to make the postseason. AJ, your thoughts?
I think the Red Sox should be higher. I think the Rays should be lower. And I think that, the Yankees only 90 wins. I don't know. That's an interesting one. But for me, the Red Sox need to be higher than 79. I think they're, with the additions they made of Crochet and Walker Buehler and some of the other additions they've made, I think they should be higher than 79. They should be more like a 82 to 84.
I'm flipping the O's and the Yanks. I really think that close. I think I don't think they're off. I think those teams are going to battle it out the whole year. I think the predisposed idea of how Baltimore kind of faltered in the second half, not kind of did. I think the Orioles can overtake the Yankees, but I think they're both going to run away with the division again. I think it's really, what are we saying? Boston should be above the Rays. The Blue Jays say they're active still. I don't know. I guess I would disagree with AJ only because, I don't think they've improved their defense enough, the Red Sox. So I just feel like you're just going to have a lot of bloodbath games because they just don't pick the ball too well.
I think the Blue Jays should look at this and go, hey, if we get one more player, we might be projected to the upper 80s and kind of do some things. If you get Pete Alonso and then you've got a Bo bounce back and Vladdy and Jimenez manning second, and you got Max maybe giving you 20 starts and Hoffman thriving in the bullpen, it's a better team.
That's
Just
a lot
saying,
of
They
ifs.
should think about it.
A lot of ifs.
That's a lot of ifs.
A lot of ifs.
Besides
A lot of ifs.
the Dodgers.
But I'll say
and,
this
you know,
about the
they're
Red
going
Sox.
62-0.
If the Red Sox get a full healthy year out of Trevor Story, that'd be a major upgrade for their defense. If they can stick Jarren Duran somewhere, they can figure out, the outfield with who they put where. Abreu is a Gold Glover and right, so they kind of have that. I think a full healthy year out of Tristan Casas And I think their defense automatically improves and they become a better team.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one, though, where Red Sox fans are like, wait, did we get better or not? Or did we overachieve last year? So let's see. That's the interesting one for me. Next up, NL East. Braves 92 wins, Mets 89 wins, Phillies 88 wins, Nationals 74 wins, Marlins 62 wins. Kratz, 88 wins for the Phillies?
I mean, let's put it this way. If the Mets finish above the Phillies, it's because of what's happened the last 2 years. The Mets really they dominate the Phillies in the sense that, like, they know how to pitch them. It showed in the playoffs in 23. In 23 when the Braves, when they beat the Braves, the Phillies beat the Braves, and the Mets ended up losing. Like, that was a team that they didn't want to see. Or maybe, no, I'm sorry, not 23. In 22, when the Phillies went to the World Series, they couldn't figure out the Mets. So, yeah, the Mets could finish above. I still think the Braves are the team to beat in this division. I just feel like they have so much depth. So could it be a race? I think the Phillies are over the Mets. I think they take them by like 2 or 3 games, but okay, I'm not totally homer that I can't see this happening.
And the real thing, AJ, they have those 3 bunched up together, which I think most people anticipate.
Yeah, my thing is Miami, 100 losses, take the under. Take the under. Take the under.
Well, can I
Take
counter
the
that? They're
Sure.
always going to be ultra conservative on the high and the low. That's like part of their projection model. So they're not going to give teams, 108 wins. They're not going to give teams 108 losses.
I know, but Miami take over. Sorry, when I said take the under, I meant under on the wins, over on the losses.
Yep.
Because they're in a tough division and they haven't signed anybody. If anything, they've gotten rid of their whole team. So I think Washington will win more than 74. I think they're going to be closer to 500, which is going to come down to Atlanta, New York, and Philly, who probably plays best against Miami and Washington to win this division. I like these. I think Philly, I still like Philly, though. I think Philly, if they play up to their potential, again, where you talk about ifs, I think they're right there. I don't know if I trust Atlanta's rotation, with the way it is. You need them to stay healthy. Again, if they stay healthy. And for the Mets, you need a healthy Senga. You need Manaea to have a year like he had last year. You need Clay Holmes. Is he going to be a starter? I just think that, is Pete Alonso going to come back? There's a lot of question marks still there. But I think Philly, for some reason, I'm not going Erik Kratz homerish, but I think Philly still has enough to possibly win this division. Now, do I think the Braves and Mets can get in? 100%.
Yeah, Philly's got to be higher for me. I think that's going to be a really good regular season team, just like they were last year. NL West is next. I mean, this is like really going for it for PECOTA. 104 wins for the Dodgers and a 99.2% chance of making the playoffs, 96% chance of winning the division. They've got 87 wins for the Diamondbacks, 82 wins for the Padres, 78 wins for the Giants, and 56 wins for the Rockies. AJ, how did they do there? That tracks for me.
I think it all crushes. I don't know. A playoff percentage for the Dodgers has got to be higher. I don't know what the 0.8% is. I don't know what can happen. Like, what can happen? Freeman, Betts, Smith, Muncy, Shohei all get hurt and miss the year. Yamamoto, Glasnow, Snell, Sasaki all miss the year. How? I just don't know how they don't make the playoffs. That's what I'm saying. They still have more guys coming. I just don't know how they don't make the playoffs. So yeah, other than that, I think the number, you can argue semantics, but I think the way they set them up is pretty close to how it's going to be.
I need to see that again. I think if Jerry mind throwing that back up there. I feel like there's something about the way the Diamondbacks lost last year and just the team just being pissed off about it. Like, I feel like the Diamondbacks could go over 90 wins. I know that's high. The team's never done that, but the ads that they have and the age of their elite MVP caliber players in Corbin Carroll, in Ketel Marte, I just feel like this could be a big year for the Diamondbacks. In no way, relax, Dodgers fans. Am I saying the Diamondbacks are taking the Dodgers' spot in the division? I'm just saying I think that's low. And we talked about that it's low or a little high for some teams, but I like them for 90.
Let's do one more. AL Central.
Under.
For the whole division. They've got the Twins winning the division, 86 wins. They've got the Royals at 81 wins and a 31% chance of making the playoffs, 32 if we're counting the decimal to go up. Cleveland at 80 wins. Detroit at 80 wins. And the White Sox at 62 wins. AJ, I know you want to tell the world that the White Sox are going to lose more games. We're with you, but do you feel like they're not giving enough credit to the rest of the division?
Yes, 100%. I feel like they're not. And this reminds me of the Cardinals last year. Remember the PECOTA came out and the Cardinals were favored to win the division, and we saw how that went. So for the Twins, yes, they added Danny Coulombe, and he's a nice pitcher, but they haven't added any starters. They haven't added any offense. And again, we keep talking about ifs. If Royce Lewis stays healthy, if Brian Buxton stays healthy, if Edward Julian figures it out, if Carlos Correa can be healthy, if Ryan Jeffers is good Ryan Jeffers, if this guy, if this guy, if this guy. It's like there's a lot of ifs. Whereas the Royals made the playoffs last year. The Tigers made the playoffs last year, brought back Jack Flaherty, added some other pieces. The Royals added pieces. They made the playoffs last year. The Guardians won this division, and they added some pieces. Now, I know they lost Naylor, but they made some other moves, and they're getting some guys, some starting pitchers back. So I just don't know. I feel like they're undervaluing the three teams in the middle there that actually made the playoffs, and the Twins who missed the playoffs. It reminds me of the Cardinals from last year.
The Cardinals, I think we all hit. Well, I guess somebody picked the Cardinals to win the division, but I think we all saw that they just had lack of starting pitching. I think this comes down to exactly what you said, AJ. Other teams in that three, obviously the White Sox didn't do anything, but those three teams, Kansas City, Cleveland, and Detroit, tried to upgrade their team, and I think in different ways they did. I think Detroit added a little bit of bullpen. They brought back Flaherty, so maybe a whole season of Flaherty gives them that same bump again. Minnesota hasn't added anybody. They haven't added anybody, and yeah, we've heard that they've tried to add starting pitching, but if you only go three deep when you're starting pitching, you're going to have a tough time consistently winning, and what happens when you get tired? Oh, you fade down the stretch. Even the best bullpens fade down the stretch like they did. So to me, I'm not putting Minnesota all the way at the bottom, but I feel like those three teams leapfrogged Minnesota. So it's going to be another great year in the AL Central.
Here's what I'm going to say. If we show those standings again, you don't think one signing can affect the AL Central? If one team goes out and makes some move, there's four teams basically within 5 games of each other, 6 games of each other, 4 of the 5. One big signing, one big move. Let's say Detroit goes and gets Alex Bregman, right? Boom, that can give them 2 or 3 extra wins possibly. That could win them the division, right? That it just shows you that if these teams are willing to make that move that can put them over the top, you can win this division. It is every year it is a winnable division for whoever makes the right moves.
Hey, for that projection system, which clearly likes WAR and wins above replacement, if you add Alex Bregman, I mean, even last year, which was an okay year, he was a 4-win player. He's consistently a 4 or 5-win player, and his prime, if you think he can get back close to it, is 7, 8, 9-win player. So even if you split that difference, yes, I mean, you could very much get a banger season from Bregman and have it make the difference. So anyway, we'll get to Ken Rosenthal next. Load up some questions if you have them for Ken, our insider segment. On the way on FT. Here we go. Chandler Rome from Crush City Territory and The Athletic. During his address at the team's annual media luncheon, Dana Brown, who is the GM of the Astros, twice spoke about Alex Bregman in the past tense, saying once that the team lost Bregman. Also, according to Brian McTaggart, who is there today, he said that Dana Brown spoke about Bregman specifically. He goes, we're having, quote, internal conversations. Actually, Chandler Rome just put the whole quote out here as I spoke. So he said, asked to clarify, Dana Brown said, quote, we're continuing to have internal conversations because he's still available. He said he hasn't spoken to Boris recently. Asked if Jim Crane had spoken to Boris recently. Brown replied, I don't know. Jim has not told me. I'm sure Jim would have told me.
Okay. This is what you expect the GM to say.
I didn't learn anything there.
No, everyone's putting way too much into this. All he said was it's a player that we've lost. Doesn't mean we can't find him again. I mean, how many times has Scott lost his keys or someone else's keys and found them again? Right?
That was really
Kratz, how many
relevant.
times have you-
It was a big issue yesterday.
Right? See what I'm saying? Right? But you lose your keys, you can always find them again. Right? I mean, think about it. So just because they lost them for now doesn't mean he can't come back to Crush City and put on those space uniforms they wear.
Or you just pay
Justin
the fine,
Verlander was-
Kratz. You pay
Justin
the fee and
Verlander
you
was
get the
lost.
keys.
He came back.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. JV came back. It's Astros versus Tigers. Blue Jays wild card. I don't know.
They want to defer it all.
The Blue Jays do.
Who's the team that has a 6-year deal on the table? That's what I want to know. And why hasn't he taken it?
People online when we did that video the other day said you guys are stupid, as in all three of us, and that the Blue Jays are that team. I was like, okay, sorry, we're just
Why didn't why did he
up.
take it? If he has a 6-156 sitting there, why hasn't he taken it?
Because
Because there's one
132 of it's deferred, like Santander. If they got Santander's already, if they got Santander to defer it all, why would they not offer that to Bregman and be like, hey, look, you got that number. And just like Jim Bowden said, hey, Scott Boras wants certain things, and maybe that number gets him that AAV technically, even though it is deferred. Who knows?
Kratz wanted to say Bowden so bad, Bowden Francis.
Did.
Don't forget the name. Dude was crazy good for a few little starts down the stretch. But
and we were talking about the Blue Jays. Blue Jays,
that's why
Bowden.
I'm saying. Let's hit the inside scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Fresh notes column out there in The Athletic. It looks like AJ wants to go somewhere with his first question, but I'm going to go first.
Can we run that again?
No, I want to go
Can
first.
we run the open again before you ask a question? Can we run the open again?
No,
Can
it
we
doesn't just
open
run
again?
auto like that.
AJ
No.
looks confused. What's confusing,
Yeah.
AJ? What's the problem?
That
here?
picture, how old was that picture that we show of you? Because that picture was from like 1984. It's like the picture over your shoulder that says you make baseball come alive. That was not a recent picture. I am sorry.
Well, that picture is, that one is from like 1989. That was a Baltimore Evening Sun newspaper box insert. How about that, AJ? Were you even alive then?
Yes, I was, Ken. I look great for my age, I must say. People think I'm
He was
30
in
all
rookie
the
ball.
Yes,
In fact,
I
you
was.
look like a vice president.
Hey, it's that kind of day. Stephen A. Smith apparently called himself Patrick Mahomes today.
Not with my hair today. My hair today is not
Yeah.
on point, I have to admit.
All right, so just
What
for
the heck?
AJ, since we'll cut it this way for our audience later on that watches this, let's hit the open again. Still in his prime, FT Senior Insider.
Free
Ken
bow tie.
Rosenthal with us
Free bow.
right now.
That's how I know how. When did you start wearing bow ties? Because you have a regular tie on. So now tell me I'm wrong.
Well, actually, there were times in the past 15 years or so where I have worn regular ties, but I started wearing them in 2010. I don't think that's pre-2010, but AJ, who cares? People want to talk about baseball, not my hair, my looks, or whenever that photo was taken.
I desperately want to steal the attention away from football this week. So I want to start with a city that needs to pay attention to their Phillies and not to their Eagles just because they're in the Super Bowl. Do you think that the Phillies could be players for Kyle Tucker after this season? Chances are not likely he's going to sign back to the Cubs. I'm sure the Yankees would be involved. But can you get into what you wrote about covering the Phillies and their payroll this morning in the notes column?
Yes, what I mentioned was that the Phillies have $75 million just about coming off their payroll at the end of this season. Now, I also said that this number is deceptive. They're most likely going to re-sign Schwarber to some deal. He's a potential free agent. And they almost have to re-sign JT Realmuto as well because they have no internal options. So the $75 million will be much less, but at the same time, their team is getting older. Their whole core is getting older. They're in their 30s to mid-30s, and they're going to need an infusion of talent in addition to what they already have, which is really good. So that's why Kyle Tucker could be someone that makes sense for them. As I wrote, they're going to need to be in the next few years creative and smart and aggressive because this window is not going to be open with these players forever.
Talk about another superstar who's been snubbed, not just for awards. When I read your notes column, kind of hit on what Bobby Witt has really been snubbed. I didn't realize you were a video game guy.
Well, I'm mildly a video game guy, but when I saw this big announcement that the cover of the show this year would be Paul Skeens, Gunnar Henderson, and Ellie De La Cruz, I thought, well, that's cool, but the best young player in the game is Bobby Witt Jr., and if you're trying to honor young players, where is that guy? So, yeah, I wrote about it today in my notes column, got this standard kind of wishy-washy, no comment pretty much from a PR person over at Sony. They basically said, we chose our guys. Every year there's controversy when we choose our guys. It's always so difficult for us to choose who should be on the cover. But to me, by any objective measure, if you're looking at the best young players in the game and you're picking three, I would think Bobby Witt Jr. at 24 years old has to be one of them. Now, he's older than all of those guys, not by much, but a little bit. So maybe they thought he's too old. I don't know.
What? Maybe he just needs a better agent. Ken, I don't know. Maybe they called his agent. Isn't his agent his dad? Wasn't his agent? No, his agent's not his dad, is it?
His agent is his dad, but I don't believe his agent was necessarily involved with this. This is EA and Sony's choice, not Bobby Witt Jr.'s or Bobby Witt.
Yeah, he didn't get the call. I can actually step in on this one too and help. He didn't get the call because I actually know his marketing agent pretty well. He does a damn good job. So I'm going to back him up there because if he got the call, they would have gotten the deal done.
We know who Scott was rooting for.
Ellie, baby. Well, if you're going to have three, you might as well have four. I get the point, but maybe he was too old. Oh. And also, I have a guess too that if you're looking at data and, you know, how many, say, Royals fans are playing the sport, and I know Bobby's technically a national superstar, that stuff does matter, right? Kansas City's a small market.
Scott. All right, that's a fair question. But look at the other markets that are represented. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. It's not like we're talking about a big West Coast or big East Coast city that is getting a player on there because they are, and because of this market size. It's not like that at all. Actually, I could have mentioned that in the column that it doesn't make sense from that perspective. Actually, to have somebody in the Midwest might have been advisable considering that all three of the other guys, well, Cincinnati's not really an eastern city, but it's east of Kansas City, and Pittsburgh and Baltimore certainly are eastern cities. So there's no logical explanation.
Okay, that's fair.
All right, let's talk about a guy from Iowa, Ken. Pat Hoberg got fired from Major League Baseball, and this has been going on for apparently almost a year, this whole investigation thing. He knew about it. So he umpired the whole year knowing that this was coming down the thing. And then he didn't umpire. He umpired some of the year.
I told you they took him off the field as soon as they knew what was going on.
Well, so when did we say this came down?
The decision came down yesterday, but before that, I was in July. We actually broke this story, Evan Drellick and I, when he was out. I can't remember exactly what it was, but midsummer, I believe, is when we found out that he was not on the field.
Did you guys know why he was out? Did you know why he was out?
I don't recall at the time if we reported it, but I believe we knew. I just don't know if we reported it. I don't have the story in front of me.
We're being told May 31st.
Certainly we heard that.
Yeah, we're being told May 31st might have been the day.
Okay.
So just for context.
But my question is this something we're going to see more often, and not only in baseball but in other sports? Because this is crazy. Remember the NBA thing where they had the guy that was betting on games? I know Hoberg, Pat said he didn't bet on baseball, and they shared an account and this whole deal. But with gambling sites everywhere, we're in it, right? This is something we need to stop. How does Major League Baseball stop this? Other sports stop this? And what's the next step? I don't know what the next step is.
Actually, it's a good question, AJ, because certainly the proliferation of gambling and gambling sites has happened, and with the cooperation of the professional sports leagues, right? So I would imagine, and this might be worth something that we should look into, maybe something we should look into. There has been an increase in security by Major League Baseball and the other leagues to monitor these kinds of things and to make sure the umpires and players are not involved in situations like the one Hoberg was involved in. I don't know that for a fact, but it would stand to reason that because of this all being so legal now, and because of players and umpires and anyone else being so vulnerable to it, yeah, you'd want increased security, you'd want an increased presence, you'd want increased investigations. And you asked if we will see more of this. I suspect we will see more of this because there are people in all walks of life who gamble and gamble at times to excess.
I still want to come in here with my point on regulation too, Ken, because I think people are living under a rock if they don't think that this stuff has been going on forever. And the only reason it's coming more so to the forefront is because it's trackable now. Pat was using apps that could be tracked. In the past, Pat would be doing the same thing with his buddy. They would just be doing it on the Cayman Islands account that everyone was using when, I was growing up, right? Or name that random other island where this was all being run on apps and on websites. So I just want to make sure I'm firm on that point because I do think the regulation is putting this more at the forefront of the news and also catching the offenders, which we didn't do well for a long time. To act like this hasn't happened, it's just that he would have never been caught in the past.
Scott, that's a great point. And I just went back, AJ, and checked that story. We did report at the time that it was for gambling. When we wrote that story, it was in mid-June. So, yes, this is something that obviously can be traced much more easily than in the past because of just what you said, Scott. That's exactly how Hoberg got caught. And what happened there was indicative of what could happen to others as well. So I don't know where this is going long term, but I do expect we're going to see this from time to time. And you've also seen stories about players who have been threatened by people who are involved in gambling and getting on them, whether through social media or some other ways. And that's something that has arisen as a result of this. I don't love it. I don't love any aspect of it, but it is reality, not just for sports leagues right now, but for sports media companies. And we can't deny that. So it's pervasive. And that's why the regulation and the discipline of it needs to be constantly in a situation where it's vigilant.
Are we going to ever figure out the mystery of San Diego? Especially with AJ Preller coming out and saying, we need to add another arm, we need to add a couple more bats. And yet we're hearing that Michael King is available. We're hearing that Dylan Cease is available. What is the mystery that we have to try to figure out in San Diego?
What exactly they're doing. And it's not clear because they are talking about those guys. And AJ Preller has made this clear to me in the past, and other GMs have too. When you have a player in his walk year and you're not certain to re-sign him, you're going to listen. Now, granted, the Blue Jays are not listening on Vlad Jr. I get it. They're trying to sign him. But generally speaking, those players you listen on and you at least explore the market value for them in a trade. Yet the Padres, as AJ Preller said the other day, need an additional arm or two and an additional bat or two. Where they get that and who those people might be, I don't know, because the free agent market has thinned considerably. You could do it in a trade. He's a very creative GM, as we've seen. He is not bound by any calendar restrictions. We've seen him make trades in March, April, May, whenever. So I don't know exactly what they're doing, and I'm not sure they know exactly, because remember, all of their offseason maneuvering is taking place against the backdrop of the lawsuit that is going on between the late owner Peter Seidler's widow and his brothers for control of the team. So where they are financially, that's not clear. Their payroll is up. It's up because of internal raises for the most part. They haven't done anything really of consequence except for sign catcher Elias Diaz. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the next few weeks and leading up to opening day, because that will tell us where they are. And actually, the Michael King contract, if you saw it the other day, 1 year, $7.75 million, with $3.75 million in a buyout that will not be paid until the end of the season. That tells you something too, because they're pushing money back, and it shows you that at least for this season, they're under some type of financial restriction.
Okay, Ken. Speaking of another GM that's under financial restriction, Jerry Dipoto came out and said, hey, the Mariners, we're the perfect team. What'd you think of what he said? Because they haven't done anything this offseason really either. And, hey, I think we're great. We have a great farm system. The fans are happy. Everyone's happy. And we're going to see how it goes.
Well, the fans are not happy, first of all. And Jerry Dipoto knows that. Their fans are frustrated by this team's unwillingness to spend what they should be spending to support a rotation that is arguably the best in the game, and a rotation you will have together for only so long. So yes, they've added Donovan Solano and Jorge Polanco. They're decent players. There's no question about that. Accomplished veterans, but they're not stars. And what this team really needs is one more huge bat. And the place to do it would have been first base. But they weren't involved in Christian Walker. They don't seem to be involved in Pete Alonso. And it seems that the problem with this organization is that ownership is unwilling to go an extra mile with payroll. Now, Jerry Dipoto is not going to sit here and tell us that and rip his owners by kind of saying, hey, guys, I'm just kind of hamstrung right now. He's never going to say that. He's always going to put his best foot forward and best face on the situation. Every GM would do that. But at the same time, fans know, media knows, people know that this is not the best possible version of the Mariners, because the best possible version of the Mariners would include more offense. Put it that way.
The Royals tried to add more offense. The Royals tried to add Anthony Santander. My question to you, because you hear all, some of the inner workings of these things, it came out that he had already agreed when the Royals came back with their final to last offer. He had already agreed to the Blue Jays offer. Have you ever heard of anybody going back on an agreement in the sense of like what Santander did, in the sense where he didn't go back? He said, hey, I agree to what the Blue Jays are offering me, and no, I can't take your offer, even though supposedly it might have been higher in a today value.
So you're asking if a player ever had a deal in place and then said, we're good, I'm going to go over here. I'm sure it's happened, Erik, and I'm probably someone who's reported on things like that. But generally speaking, that's not an honorable thing to do. And he had agreed with Toronto. Now, people had asked, I saw after I reported that, hey, what took the Royals so long? Well, they were negotiating with him. They had been negotiating with him, the shorter deals. And they got to a certain point, but by that time he was down the road with Toronto. That does happen. That's not that unusual. But I have not heard of players going back. It was just an interesting thing to me. And I reported today that the Angels were in on a shorter term deal with Santander as well. He wanted the $92.5 million, even though 2/3 of it's deferred. The present day value is much lower. And the 3 or 4 year deal he might have gotten from the Royals or Angels probably would have been similar in present day value. But a lot of times players like the big number, agents like the big number, and that's what he took. He also took a 5-year commitment where the other teams were not offering that length.
Ken, I remember a guy, Jermaine Dye, when we won the World Series in 2005. He signed with the White Sox. Another team came in at the end. I don't remember the team, but they said, hey, whatever he signed for, let's say he signed for $5 million. Another team came in and said, we'll give you $6 million. And he said, too late. I already agreed with the White Sox. I can't go back to him and change my mind. It was an honorable thing. Most players, if they've agreed, now I'm sure there's been times where they've changed their mind, but most players that I've ever heard of, once they say yes to a team, they go to that team. I mean, it's just the right, like you said, it's the honorable thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And if your agent's being right and truthful to you, it's what you should do.
Right, absolutely, AJ. And granted, sometimes funky things happen in negotiations. It's just the nature of it. And especially in situations like the winter meetings where there's a lot of action, and with bigger names, sometimes things are really flying. I remember the Aaron Judge negotiations. There was a lot going on those last couple of days. But at the same time, players and their agents generally know which direction they're going in, and they don't change on a dime like that. Obviously, if the money from someone else is much greater, then maybe they think about it. And I'm sure it's happened. I can't imagine it. This has not happened, but I just don't think it's common at all.
Also, if you want the player badly enough, you make your best offer, you go for it, you're aggressive, you get stuff done early. And if not, which many teams do, they pay the price for that. And the Royals have been aggressive in the past, but just throwing that out there because I'm a little bit sick of signings in February. But it is what it is. That's how these front offices like to play. But I'm not bitter about it. Anyway, Ken, thank you.
Well, actually,
right?
Scott, let me make a point on that because this is, in my opinion, a definite strategy that the teams are taking with the remaining free agents. They're essentially bleeding them. And they're essentially saying, we will wait and wait and wait until we get the price we want. I don't necessarily care for that because, as you said, Scott, if you want a player, go get him. But this is an effective negotiating strategy. And because there is no deadline and nothing is to stop any team from continuing on and on and on with players, when it gets to this point of the offseason, and I'm not talking about Alonso and Bregman and Pivetta so much, I'm talking about the lesser players, the medium range players. These guys are in a tough spot because the teams are trying to get them to sign minor league deals, non-roster deals, and they all want major league deals, and they just keep waiting, and there's a glut of these players. There's not enough jobs to go around, and for the owners and the teams, this is the way that they believe is the best way to go, and I cannot argue with that from their perspective. It's just not a kinder, gentler form of going about it.
Yeah, it's not great business. Hey, we don't love you enough to give you this money, so we're going to squeeze you into February. But more from Ken coming up on Thursday on Fair Territory. Ken, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. There it is, Fair Territory. Go check it out. It's live on Thursdays on the Foul Territory YouTube channel. Be right back, FT fam.
Who's going to close for this game? Who's going to or for this team? Who's going to throw the back into the bullpen? And if it's not one of those two guys, is there a young buck in that bullpen we're not thinking about that you think, you're the expert on closing? You think there's a young guy who could do it?
So that's a great point, Trev. But for me right now, opening day closer is going to be Araldis. You paid him to be your closer. He's going to be your closer. Liam's going to set up him, and then you've got my biggest sleeper is a guy named Zach Kelly. He's got a wipeout slider, throws 97, 98, but he can't command the baseball. I've talked to him 1,000 times when I go up there about how to command the baseball and not necessarily throw your two seam so much to where it runs out of the zone. But anyway, and then you got Justin Slatton. So for me, the best part about it is when you go into a season and you have two guys in your bullpen that have closed before. When one gets in a slump, you just insert the other guy and you give the other guy a chance to get out of his slump. And so to me, I think there's reinforcements in this bullpen. Is it going to be a great bullpen? No, it's not going to be a great bullpen, but it's going to be good enough to help the six-man staff and the six-man rotation that I was telling you about earlier. Now, if the Red Sox are in it by, say, trade deadline, in my opinion, they're going to have to go out and get one or two more guys to bolster the bullpen because you know as well as I do, come playoff time, everybody needs bullpen help. So as of right now, that's the way I see it. Christian Campbell's going to break camp and start at second base this year. That's my first big my first big of the big three. That's my first one coming out. I believe opening day roster, he will be starting at second base. I think you're going to have Duran in left field. You're going to have Story at shortstop. Devers batting third at third base. Casas fourth. Abreu in right field. Yoshida's going to DH, but my senses say that by the time the season's over, Yoshida won't even be with the Red Sox. Wong catching, Campbell playing second, batting eighth, and my MVP candidate, Fiella, playing center field.
That's incredible. Good for you. Now let's get back to the pitching here. I mean, they boosted it with Crochet as we talk about Buehler, and now we got Giolito coming back here. Is this enough? I mean, or is this going to be the staff of old now getting after it for the Boston Red Sox?
Well, Fraze, I think that it's enough.
For the people keep asking us questions, especially on Instagram. We'll give you answers. So here's one from Julian. He said, question for AJ. I wanted to know for years. When he covered the Astros in the playoffs in 2019 against Tampa Bay, a big combo on the broadcast, how do you hit a pitcher like Gerrit Cole, who was striking out a ton of people back then? AJ's answer, almost without hesitation, cheat. There are many other instances on the broadcast where he would say something along the lines of cheat, cheat, and cheat again. My question is, did AJ know the Astros were up to something back then, or is it just one hell of a coincidence?
Oh my God.
He's an Astros
No,
fan.
I had no idea. I had no idea. What I meant by that was cheat to the fastball. Get ready for the fastball and don't get beat by a fastball. Because what was happening is, I think it was the Rays, they were late on all the fastballs. So when, as a baseball player, when you say cheat, that means get ready early and just put all your chips in and cheat everything you have to the fastball to miss it out front. That's what I was saying. No, I had no idea they were cheating. Because if I would have had a little bat and I would have had a garbage can and I would have been like, but I didn't do that. So, yeah, I know that's not, I think Kratz knows what I'm talking about. If you ask Kratz, anybody that played, they know that cheating means you're just ready for the fastball and you're just cheating to get it out front. And at the time, Gerrit Cole was throwing four-seamers at 100 miles an hour. And so you just had to make sure you didn't get beat by that.
Yep, exactly. Common term, actually, that you hear often.
Basically, what I was saying is you got one shot to hit a fastball. If he throws you 3 breaking balls in a row, you go sit down, take your shot on the first fastball you see and try to get the head out and hit it in the Crawford boxes.
I thought AJ was going to be like, yeah, of course I knew that. I knew everything. I just don't always like.
He did. That was
everything.
I think that was the series when Glasnow was tipping and we couldn't say it, but I was like, oh, they know what's coming. And we knew that he was tipping, but I couldn't say, you can't really say that he's tipping on the air. So you're like, well, they kind of know what's coming. And you try to gloss around it without actually saying he's telling him what's coming.
Good job. Good job. And great question from Julian. Be right back for Slap. It is a good question, but I mean, if AJ knew that back then, he didn't have foul territory to talk about it on. What?
If you look back, even in their investigation, there were several teams that in 2017 did accuse the Astros of cheating and told Major League Baseball. And Major League Baseball said, okay, we'll do something about it if we catch them. So it didn't come out till later.
Well, MLB also said, okay, we've gotten calls on half the league.
Oh, there was that too.
Yeah.
It was just going on.
Didn't come out.
It was going on.
The thing, the Danny Farquhar video was the thing after the guy, who was it that said it, the pitcher?
Mike Fiers.
The Astros, Mike Fiers came out and said it. And then the Danny Farquhar, that video is like the most damning video you've ever heard. I mean, remember he called the catcher, I was with the White Sox, and he's like, let's change our signs because they know something. And you could hear the boom, boom, boom in the background. That was, to me, it was like, whoa, baby.
And that's Danny Farquhar, who's, fringe big leaguer trying to just make it and getting screwed over in that situation. But also he's like, I'm not going to be the one to out a team like this. He's just not in a position to do that. I mean, a lot of players were pretty pissed at Fiers after that, even non-Astros players. But it did actually really help clean up the game. It was getting annoying, the paranoia, and it was causing massive, massive delays in games. Obviously, we have a pitch clock now. It would have been nice back then. It would have been insane, actually. That would have been some drama because there was so much pausing and timeouting and sign switching during that whole paranoia era. But anyway, good question from someone who is an Astros fan who's like, I don't care. I can take the heat. I just want to actually know. And he had always been curious. So I love that stuff. Keep asking it on all the socials. Obviously, I see as much as possible on YouTube, but Instagram DMs help too, at Foul Territory Show. All right, FT fam, be right back with a little soundbite from Rob Thomson, Phillies manager, on the Phillies show.
are the Phillies going to compete with the Dodgers when they're just loading up on all these guys? And as the competitor, what's your feeling on what the Dodgers have done this season?
How they spend their money is how they spend their money. You can't do anything about it. You can't control that. But all you can control is what you do, and you just go out and compete. This is Major League Baseball. They're all big leaguers, and we got a really good club. They can only play 9 guys, and they can only start 1 pitcher every night. And we've got a really good rotation. We've got a really good lineup. We got a really good bullpen. So we'll match up fine with them.
There you go. That's Rob Thomson, Phillies manager, on the Phillies show, joining Todd, Jim, and Ruben. You can catch that show wherever you get your shows. Just look it up. Type it in the search, part of the FT network. Good answer. Certainly better than the answer we got from Yankees ownership the other day, guys.
He ain't scared.
No, and I bet you the owner says the same thing. Yeah. Don't you agree? I bet the owner's like, screw it. He usually does these like epic, war movie type speeches in the clubhouse before the season starts. Training. Yeah. I hope he like brings a huge bag of money. He's like, we rich too. They can't stop us. They got a big payroll.
That would be a bold move, but if anyone could do it, John Middleton's the man.
It's a much manlier way to approach it than to be like, well, we can't keep up with them. We need to keep
It's hard. It's hard to do what they're doing.
It was just a cringe answer the other day. We went over it, at length if you missed it, if you want to check it out. And so did Ken on one of his previous Fair Territories. All right. A little purple on Kratz Hatz on the way out. What is that?
I mean, only Scotty knows.
Backyard.
Scotty doesn't know. Backyard baseball. Little melon heads.
Dude, I know the melon heads. I was a video gamer. Obviously, I played. And that was a computer game. I wasn't even allowed to have a console for a while, so you had to go backyard.
You had.
Yeah. That was a cheat code. You cheat your way out of a console into the PC games, and it's the same thing. It's still a video game, but don't tell my parents. See everyone Wednesday.